We've got the Steelers at the Broncos. Obviously, the incredible Russell Wilson homecoming game. There's going to be a big celebration for him. Jumbotron, full 18-minute tribute video. Okay, probably not. What is your matchup that matters here as the Steelers travel to Denver against the Broncos?
I mean, yeah, it's not Russell's not even going to play. It doesn't look like so.
Right.
This is Justin Fields' game, and therefore it is the job of the Denver front seven to contain Justin Fields because now that you know that this is your guy, they spent all preseason preparing for Russ to be the starter, and now you have Justin Fields who does have that mobility and is a fantastic runner. He, among quarterbacks last week, he had the third most rushing yards at 57 on 14 carries. 5 rushes gaining a first down. We know that he can do that. And 43 rushing yards after contact as a quarterback. So that's something that you have to account for if you're the Denver front seven. And especially it's going to lead into, I don't know if you want me to do it now, but it's going to lead into my plus factor of how this Pittsburgh offense can be successful. This Pittsburgh defense, it's nothing new for Pittsburgh. This team runs through its defense, and its defense limiting the amount of points its opponent scores. But that means the offense still has to score more. And the way that they're going to do that with Justin Fields is probably going to be on the ground, not only because we haven't seen Justin Fields be super effective as a passer, but also because, the Steelers don't really have a lot of weapons for him to begin with. So you have to kind of figure out how this offense it's a ground and pound offense. We're seeing a lot now that we're really starting to really preview these games. It's interesting how many times I find myself being like, yeah, no, this is going to be a run first offense, and how the league is kind of shifting a little bit. Maybe obviously not entirely; it's still a passing league, but there are some teams that are zigging while the others are zagging.
Yeah, well, I think that we've seen some trends already in the early parts of the season where, running the ball is becoming more and more valuable because of how much teams are setting up to defend the pass on defense. And so that will be a very interesting trend that we're going to make sure that we keep tabs on here at PFF of just how valuable the run is becoming because of how much defenses are really leaning towards limiting the pass. And it felt like quarterback numbers were down across the board in the NFL
league
this
in
year.
week 1.
Right. So are we going to see teams be able to lean into that more and more? You can go right ahead into your plus factor because my plus factor kind of bounces off yours, and I can round it out with my matchup that matters. But my plus factor has to be for the Steelers, any non-George Pickens wide receiver. Tight ends included, running backs included. I don't care. Somebody show up. George Pickens, 85 receiving yards last week. The next closest with Pat Freiermuth with 27. Now I understand Justin Fields isn't exactly the prolific passer that's going to be dicing defenses through the air all the time. But it's got to be somebody other than Pickens. And we talked about that before the season as well. I think we talked about that last week with the Steelers offense when we were doing our preview of week 1. Somebody's got to show up other than him. But who is your plus factor in this one?
Yeah, it's really easy to take away one guy if you're a defense, and that's what teams are going to try to do against George Pickens. So it's Najee Harris, because Najee Harris only had a 3.5 yards per carry average against the Atlanta Falcons. He had 20 attempts for 70 yards, but 20 attempts on top of having your quarterback run 14 times, by the way. So clearly Arthur Smith is leaning into this being a ground game, and part of that is going to have to present defenses with multiple runners to contend with because, again, like we were talking about, defenses are lighter, they're faster, they're more sophisticated, but that's to contend with the pass. To run the ball, you just got to have a really good offensive line blocking for you and a really hard-nosed runner, which we know Najee Harris can be.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to kind of give defenses decisions to make when it comes to who are they going to key in on. Can they safely key in on the running back, or are you going to send Justin Fields on some designed runs? We know he can do that in Chicago. That was such a point of emphasis for Chicago fans with Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator at the time, saying, why aren't you designing more runs for Justin Fields? He can do it. So now I fully expect that to be the case, but in order for that to be a real threat, you need to have another running back.
Yeah, and I think that, a lot of people had high hopes for Jaylen Warren as well. He played, but coming off the hamstring injury,
2 attempts, 7 yards.
Right. He
really
just didn't get emphasized a lot. So I wonder if they're still just easing him in because hamstrings are tricky. You don't want to lean all on that. Look, my matchup that matters in this game, we're sort of going in reverse order here. This is, again, what I think could be an absolute game wrecker, where you could talk about everything. You could talk about corner and wide receiver matchups. You could talk about quarterbacks and run game, everything. If this matchup here goes as south as it has the potential to me, none of it matters. Broncos offensive line versus the Steelers defensive line. Broncos offensive line last week against the Seattle Seahawks, 59.1 overall blocking grade, which is 29th in the league. 47.1 run blocking grade, which is 31st in the league, and allowed the second most pressures, which is 19 in the NFL in week 1. They're going up against a Steelers defensive line. TJ Watt had a 84.6, no, it was 94.6 pass rushing grade in week 1 and a 90.6 pass rushing grade as a whole team in week 1 was the Steelers.
Wow.
The Broncos, we talked about them a lot, the most expensive offensive line in the NFL. They did not play up to their price tag this past week. And if they play similarly against the Steelers defensive line is even better. I mean, again, I keep saying JJ Watt. TJ Watt can take over the game himself if the Broncos play the way that they did last week. So there are so many little things about this game that could, be the game of inches, if you will. Coin flip, ball bouncing one way or the other. If the Broncos offensive line doesn't play a hell of a lot better than they played last week, TJ Watt is just going to absolutely eat them alive. So will Cam Hayward, so will everybody else in the defensive line, because that is what they are capable of.